All right, cool. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're all having an awesome start to your week. We're talking about strength training today, and not just strength training, but like how to train to maintain. But more so strength training than anything else, but also like how we're going to put cardio in, how we are going to recover properly, and just some ins and outs behind strength training. There we go. Sorry, I'm like letting people in as we go. But one thing that I really, really, really want to first, I hope everyone's having a good time with our cohort, right? We're cruising through the weeks, picking up habits, just aiming to do 1% better each week. But okay, so to train to maintain, and one thing I really, really want to hammer home is like strength training is not really a negotiable thing at this point in our life. If we want to enter and like go through menopause and enter perimenopause and just our hormones are going to change. And if we want to go through that in a way where it doesn't feel like we're fighting our body, we need to strength train. And there's many reasons why. Um, it's not just about like building biceps or building a butt. Like it's about protecting your metabolism, your joints, your hormones, and your independence, right? We really want to train smarter, not harder. And you want your work today to pay off for the next, however many decades we're still here cranking out things. So mostly what we're going to talk about today is just kind of how to future-proof your body, and doing so in a very intentional way, and gaining freedom, gaining longevity, gaining energy, and not burnout. Because that's, we like to do a whole lot more than we probably need to. And there's nothing wrong. Like you can do a whole heck of a lot with your body. Like we are allowed to chase performance. We just have to make sure that we're fueling for performance. So why strength training matters. So in peri and post menopause, strength training is the #1 protector of your metabolism. What am I missing over here? It preserves lean muscle, and that naturally will decline with age. And I think rather than like studies have been done, we got more people in the waiting room. And it's less about like, hey, you're getting older and your muscles declining. And it's a heck of a lot more about the fact that we don't actually strength train or do things to preserve our muscles. So if you strength train now and you have yet to go through perimenopause, go through menopause, it's not like, oh, tomorrow all of a sudden you're going to lose your muscle. There might be I think it was like 1 to 3 pounds might be lost through perimenopause. But it's not like, hey, you're getting older and you're just going to lose all this muscle. Um, it'll improve bone density, which after 50, 64% of women are now fall risks. And it's if you fall and have a major fall through that, it's up to 50% of women will never gain their quality of life back. And so that's really scary. So like, while, hey, strength training, you can build a really nice butt, we can look really good in a swimsuit, we can feel really strong in our body. It's also going to prevent these things that are really real and scary. I can't think of the word, instances that can happen in life, right? Like that's not something you think of in your younger years. And as you age, if we're not taking care of ourselves, it can become a very real reality. Um, you know, um, Strength training supports insulin sensitivity and blood sugar management, and that does get harder as we age. As our hormones decline, your body becomes less receptive to insulin, and it does make it easier to put on a little bit of body fat. So ensuring that you're using the carbs that you're eating, that you're building muscle to help. Because here's the thing, when you strength train, you're not just like, your body's not just creating output for that hour. It'll create output for the next 24 to 36 hours. So you're using, whereas like with cardio, it's just the time that you're doing the thing, but you're using the sugars, you're using your food, you're supporting your body even in the times that you're not in the gym. And that's really cool. And when we want to look at like, what are we going to get the best return out of our investment? It's going to be strength training. It also boosts our mood, boosts our confidence and our resilience. Not only do we get dopamine, long-term, you're going to get serotonin from that. But if you feel good in your body, if you feel strong, if you're feeling more stable, that's going to improve your confidence. Like we want to be able to carry our groceries in from now until forever. We don't want to have to think like for me, I always think about this often. I have an only child, and I don't want my health to ever have to be something she has to worry about. And so by strength training and making sure that I stay as active and as mobile as I can, I know that, hey, I get to have independence in my old age. And that's a really cool thing because I don't think that's something I ever saw out of my family as the women in my family aged. So that's one of the bigger things for me when it comes to strength training. Muscle in and of itself is metabolic gold. So while like, hey, the muscle makes us look lean, it makes us look toned. Because really being lean and toned is just having muscle on your body. There's not like special toning exercises or leaning exercises. Um, Muscle is metabolic gold. The more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you're going to burn every single day. Muscle is an active tissue. It burns while you're at rest, it burns while you're sleeping, and that's where like it's the best return on your investment. When you do cardio, it's just for that time period that you're going to be burning calories. Um, each pound of muscle that you put on will actively increase your daily calorie burn. And on the flip side of that, when we don't fuel our body to preserve our muscle, the first thing your body's going to think is, well, let me get rid of this tissue that's caused, like, she's not feeding us. Let's get rid of this tissue that is creating a lot of energy output. And that's one reason that we also look at like, hey, as we get older, we're losing muscle. Chances are we're probably not fueling ourselves properly through this time. Just life. And as we're getting older, and then we start to notice our body shift, and our first thought is, ooh, I should eat less than what I've been eating. And it's just kind of pushing your body further into that hole a bit. Um, and that's that this prevents that metabolic slowdown that is often blamed on hormones alone. And
Yeah,
I
Marita.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say you were going to say a statistic on muscle loss earlier. It's about 3 to 5% on average per decade
Okay.
after the age of 30. So if we're losing 3 to 5% of our muscle mass, age 30 to 40, and then 40 to 50, and then the rate actually doubles after age 50,
Hmm.
then that's obviously going to have a huge impact on our metabolism because we are not going to be as metabolically active. So you just talking about this here, that metabolic slowdown is a number of things, but if we can tackle building muscle and maintaining our muscle mass, that will help immensely. And just because it's common to lose 3 to 5% muscle mass per decade doesn't mean it's normal or it can't be prevented. It's very preventable in just having intentional training and fueling your body and just all the things you're talking about. So just wanted to add to that.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the number off the top of my head.
I know, right when you need them, they're gone.
But I like muscle is the cheat code for longevity, whether it's for your metabolism, whether it's for your like your what's the word I'm thinking of? I already said longevity, just for your joint strength, your tendon strength, ligament strength. It just helps across the board. But with the metabolism, that's something we would, we'd like to keep that revving at a higher pace. And I don't want us to think of our metabolism as something that's slow or fast. It's hot or cold. And the more that you keep pouring in, like the more wood you keep putting on a fire, the more gas you put into a fire, the bigger it's going to be. And we have quite a bit of control over that. Like we are not victims to our age. We're not victims to our hormones. We're in control. So programming principles, and this is where it gets fun because a lot of times we think more is better, right? I got to do more. I have to do 15 sets of things. I have to do all these reps. I just have to leave the gym on quaky, shaky legs, barely able to walk out, when that's not really the case. When thinking of programming, I kind of want you to think of it as baking a cake. And if one ingredient's off, the recipe is going to flop, right? And we need the right mix of everything, not more of everything. And many women think that they need more volume, but it's really about improving your intensity and your recovery. The big things for programming and for strength training is we focus on our volume, our frequency, and our intensity. Your volume is your total number of sets and reps per week for muscle growth. Your frequency is how often you train a muscle group, and your intensity is how heavy or hard the workload feels. I feel like I broke these down. Yeah, okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure I broke these down on slides. And all three really need to be balanced to make sure that we're going to get the results that we want. To get like the most out of your strength training, we need to make sure that all of it is balanced, and that there's plenty of recovery. We don't actually build muscle when we're in the gym. We're creating the stimulus to tell the body to build more muscle, but we build the muscle when it comes to recovery. But if we're doing way too much, we're also not going to build the muscle. So volume is the amount that we're doing, right? So we want to work on doing about 10 to 20 challenging sets per muscle group per week. And that, I don't like, you're going to do a heck of a lot more shoulders than you are going to do. Well, we kind of normally we break our legs down into quads, and like you're going to do more shoulder volume than maybe you would do chest volume. Um, and that's broken up into multiple different workouts. So I like to have the, depending on how many days a week you work, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself on my slides, but depending on how many days a week you can commit to working out, is if like you're going to do full body or if you're going to do part specific or upper lower. Um, if you're hitting like 3 times a week, cool, let's do full body so you can hit those muscles a couple times throughout the week. If you're going to do upper lower, cool, we'll do a lower one day, upper lower upper. If you're training more than that, you can get a little bit more part specific or throw in like, if you want to have an extra glute day, shoulder day. But we want to aim to have like 10 to 20 challenging sets per muscle group, and about 6 to 12 reps for most lifts. This is your sweet spot for strength and hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is muscle growing, and strength is you getting stronger, and they don't always necessarily equal each other. And this is just a target, right? If you can get more reps, we're going to increase our weight. And something to think about is when you're picking your weight for your reps. If you get done with a movement and you're like, oh, I could do like 10 more reps, I could do 5 more reps, we need to go a little bit heavier. You want to be getting, and I'm going to go over RIR and like how to target that in a few more slides, but you want to make sure that you're getting as close to failure as you can, and you can't really hold a conversation through that. We want to aim for about 2 to 4 sets per exercise, and enough work to stimulate the muscle without overtraining. So again, like if you're thinking of training legs twice a week, it could be that like you do legs, you do 3 to 4 leg exercises each day, and then 2 to 3 sets for each one. So you don't have to do all the things every day. And chances are, if you're doing workouts where you have all of these movements and all of these reps and all of these sets, you're not going to be putting in the effort that you could get out of yourself if you pull back that volume. So we really want to look at quality over quantity. More is not always better, even though we've been taught to believe that. So we have frequency. How many times a day? We're going to hit those major muscle groups 2 times per week. And again, like I said, I got a little ahead of myself. We have our full body, which we can do about 3 times a week, our upper lower split 4 times a week. And if you're going to do a push pull legs, or you want to do like the bro splits from back in the day, more of like the chest, the back, they tend to not be the most effective in my opinion, because if you miss, let's say you miss your back day for the week, like there goes your back day. So having these where you have mixed movements tends to work a lot better for those of us who have something else going on in their life besides just working out. And the best number, everyone, what's the best number of workouts? The best number of workouts is however many you can commit to. If you can commit to 2 a week, that's a heck of a lot better than you trying to get 4 a week, where some weeks you get 3, some weeks you get 4. Maybe this week you got 2, because you're going to be missing out on your training, rather than just kind of pulling back to what you can commit to. Muscles love a reminder, and so training them once a week is better than nothing, but twice a week is a really great place to sit at. And that's why, like, hey, if you're committing to 2 or 3 times a week, then we're just going to make it those full bodies, which I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of, but I actually really love them. I know a lot of my clients aren't a big fan of those, but I feel like I don't have to completely tax one body part every time I go into the gym. I get to kind of pull back a little bit because I know, like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to be doing it, or the next day. But more than anything, there's never a right plan. There's not a perfect app. I mean, aside from the HF Physique app, there's not a perfect app.
Also, little plug in 5 weeks, our next cycle. And so starting November 2nd and moving forward, we are adding a full body 3 day week option. So we will have the 4 days a week option, and then we will have in addition to that the full body 3 day a week option, because for me personally, I love training 3 days a week. I'm more maintaining my muscle mass at this point in time. And if I wanted to build, I could build on 3 days a week, absolutely, just with a little bit different intensity in my sets. But I think 3 days a week is kind of awesome. And then we have the optional glute day. So we really just wanted to provide more options, because that allows for more flexibility, which allows for better sustainability. And so just throwing that out there for those of you testing out programming, that is to come in a couple weeks.
like I said, that is the only perfect programming. But above all anything, like because we get inundated with like, buy this thing, do this program, do this movement, and you'll see a lot of very unique movements on Instagram, and a lot of that's clickbait. Like we really just want to be consistent. And honestly, you could do like a shoulder press, a deadlift, a back row, and a squat every single, like I'm gonna just get really freaking good at those movements, and you'll see your body change. Like it does not have to be
Absolutely.
these crazy fancy things. We can progress if you want to challenge yourself, but simplicity here. Sorry if I'm talking fast, gang. I have a tendency to do that. Next, we have intensity. And this is where I think a lot of women might fall short. We get scared to lift heavy. We get scared to hurt ourselves. We're overcoming past injuries, just different things. And it's also not something women have, boys have been taught to be strong. And I'll tell you, when I shifted my focus to more of intensity. I was at a point in my cycles of binge eating and dieting and all these things, and I was like, I'm never going to heal this. I really thought that. This was like 10 years ago. My thought was, if I just focus on getting really strong, amazing. I was like, my body probably won't change, but if I get strong, I'll feel really like I'll feel confident about myself in this because that's something I've worked towards. And in that process, my body changed, and I was like, oh heck yeah. So before that, chances are I know my intensity was not where it needed to be, and I was doing way too much, and I was trying to burn the candle at both ends. But intensity wise, like how are we going to pick what weights we use? One, I don't want you to hurt yourself. So we're not just going to be jacking around heavy weights, but we're going to try and focus on an RPE of 7 to 9. This will be challenging, but safe with effort. And what RPE is rate of perceived effort. And exertion, if you have 7 to 9, if you have a 7 to 9 there, that's going to mean, hey, if you get to 7, what am I trying to say? You want to, like, if you have a 7 programmed, you're going to have 3 reps left for yourself. If you have a 9 programmed, you're going to have 1 rep left in the tank. So we're not necessarily going to complete failure, but you're going to a place where you're like, ooh, I probably can't get too much more out of myself. So let's say you go to do a shoulder press and you pick up a 15-pound weight and you get to your 10 reps and you're like, I could definitely crank out 5 more. Let's pick up the next weight and see how that challenges us. However, let's say you have 10 reps and you pick up that next weight and you can only get to like 6, 7, 8. I'm going to tell you, let's not work on getting to the 10 right that moment and stay with the little bit heavier weight as long as you can maintain your form. That's usually what I advise my clients. I'm not sure if you have a little bit different insight on that, Michaela, but
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
no, you're good.
Trying to unmute fast. So, and this is something we talk about a lot. We usually use reps in reserve. We've kind of gone back and forth between RPE and reps in reserve
Oh,
just based on
sorry.
what we think. No, I think both are, it's the same,
Thought
speaking the
process.
same, yeah, same thought process, a little bit different language, but with reps in reserve or RPE, I would like to think, like, for me, this is exactly what Marita said. If it's a 7 RPE, I kind of think as like 10 being the rep standard in my mind for easy math. So if it's a 7 out of 10, like 7 out of 10 exertion, that's your rate of perceived exertion. So you're at 70% exertion. That in my mind is having about 3 reps in the tank. So 3 reps in reserve. And most of our programming is the 1 to 3 reps in reserve. Like you could go to failure on a lateral delt raise, right? And that's not going to be like, you could have 0 reps in reserve on that. And sometimes I'll program that. That's not going to tax your nervous system and cause you to be just exhausted and unable to train the next day, right? But if you go to a 10 RPE, so 100% exertion, 0 reps in reserve, then that on let's say a back squat, you're going to be feeling like garbage the next day, right? Like that's not to say never go to failure on a back squat, but it's fun to see where you're at. And if you have a good spotter and you're safe and you have, rest programmed in, like go for it. But that's not something we're going to typically do because it's not necessary to build muscle it's not necessary for hypertrophy. And most of our clients, especially those in a fat loss phase, should not be training to failure because you're going to be exhausted. We have very limited resources when we are in a fat loss phase in terms of energy. So training at that 7, 8 kind of sweet spot, maybe 9 RPE on most of our movements is going to allow for us to build or maintain muscle without just totally taxing our nervous system, which is like a very fine line to walk. And I think so beneficial Marita's talking about because yeah, we just don't have as much energy to give in a fat loss phase. And we want to be really intentional with what we do. And that's why same goes for, sorry, I'm a little long-winded. Same goes
It's
for
okay.
like high intensity training. It's not, oh, you're in perimenopause, no more hit. It's, oh, hormones are declining and we're trying to lose body fat. So we need to be really intentional with the movement we're doing and making sure it's giving us the results that we want. So maybe instead of 4 days a week of hit, we are going to do one intentionally high intensity interval training day and get that like high from it, feel really good, have the mental benefits, and also allow for recovery when our energy is going to be lower. So, yeah, that's kind of my long-winded answer there.
Perfect. Um, yeah. That was like the biggest thing is being able to recover properly. Um, but when you're in the gym and you're trying to pick these weights and you want to challenge yourself, like we need to be making the ugly faces. We need to be putting our Botox to work. We want to make sure that we are putting it all out there because our if we're not, we're gonna be preserving our muscle, but we need to be able to send that signal of, hey, let's grow more muscle fiber. Um,
Yeah, and I think a lot of women train in that like 4 to 6 RPE range, kind of going through the motions. So they're not really building muscle, maybe maintaining it. And then they
mhm.
go and do 3 hit classes. And so now we're not only not building muscle, but we're also like very under recovered and overly stressed.
We're telling the body, like, please don't build more of this, essentially with our
Yes.
actions. Uh,
We're under eating and we're doing high intensity training and we're not building muscle. So,
like
all
if
things to
you,
consider.
yeah, if you're on the leg extension machine and you can still scroll on your phone while you're cranking out your reps, like we're not going hard enough. I'll see it at the gym and I want to say stuff. I gotta make sure I don't say things to people. I'm like, hi, my name's Marita. I'm just trying to help. Or like if you can hold a conversation through your reps, like you're not
Yeah.
pushing yourself. And while having a buddy there is great, I love training with a friend sometimes, but I'm like, we got to keep our headphones on and not talk to each other so we can put in that effort. Um, and then we want to progressively overload, whether that's adding weight, adding a rep, um, adding a set, which you do if you're very well recovered, or maybe you're not so much in a fat loss space. And if we're not able to add weight, if we're not able to add reps, like, hey, are you managing that form a heck of a lot better? Are you able to hold like if you can you squat and hold a pause for a couple seconds at the bottom? These are all ways that we can increase our difficulty and progressively overload over time. And I will say you can get on Amazon little clips for dumbbells. They're 1.25s. They come in sets of 2 or 4. Get those. It is so hard for us to progress with upper body um, in conventional gyms with like the 10, the 15, the 20. It's you get to this point where you're going to get stuck at weights and we need the micro changes. You're going to notice your lower body probably making massive changes when it comes to lifting versus your upper body. But
Yeah.
getting those small plates and like you can even get little plates to put on barbells that are like I have 0.25 up to like 1.75 and it makes a really big difference in getting those micro changes to leading to macro changes. I think what like I've been at the
Absolutely. And
same.
one thing you asked earlier about rep ranges.
Oh yeah.
So, if you're most of our rep ranges are in that kind of 6 to 12 rep range. And so I always love to start on that low end of the rep range and add weight. But depending on what you have equipment wise to you, like, you can maybe add a rep, like for upper body, especially, it can be hard to add weight. So maybe adding a rep makes the most sense, working up, let's say the rep range is from 6 to 8 reps. So starting at 6, adding weight until you kind of can't anymore, and then adding a rep until you hit 8, and then maybe dropping back down to 6 reps and adding weight. So just using that rep range as like inspiration versus just like a hard and fast rule, because then you can actually pay attention, like, where am I at on my perceived exertion? Can I go harder? And if you hit 8 and you have more reps in the tank, like, go to 10 and then just adjust your weight on the next set. So
Yeah, I like that. Use it as inspiration. It's not a hard number.
yes, how some
Um,
of us use our recipes for cooking too. It's not a baking recipe, it's a cooking recipe.
we're gonna it's an art, not a science.
Yes.
I was learning recently just the power of isometric movements, and it's something they did a study on recently, and it is the surefire way to increase your strength. It is like one of the best. It is the best way. I forget what the study was. It was just done recently, but is the best way to increase your strength because it strengthens your tendons, and those are pretty much like the governor for your muscle. So if you find yourself, or even with pain, if you find yourself like struggling to get up
Mhm.
in weight with squats, do wall sits for a while, some weighted wall sits, put those in for a few weeks and see how your squat progresses. If you find yourself in like a shoulder pain, maybe we just hold a dumbbell in an isometric position like this for 30 seconds and see how that helps strengthen things. You'll notice a big difference in these like simple, easy things. Um, it's like a basket, right? Like our training is a basket. We want to fill it up with all the different things that'll support us, or a toolbox, I guess. And the isometric training is something that it can make a massive difference in your strength and your intensity overall. So that was my little
Love that.
my little free blurb there. Next, we're going to talk about cardio because some of us love it. So, like, and it is a great feeling, right? And cardio done right is going to do so much for your body. It'll support your health, but too much definitely can stress out your hormones. And that's not because your body can't withstand stress. It's because we have children who need us, and jobs, and a home we take care of, and 10 million bits of information going through our head probably a minute. So we just need to be able to do things in a way that still feels good for our body. Zone two is great for heart health, and that's something you're going to take your age and subtract it from 180, and that'll be the upper limit. Which sometimes, I don't know about you, like when I'm doing zone two running, it can be a laughable pace. I'm like, this is very
Yeah.
slow.
Have you seen
Like,
all those memes where it's like me doing my zone? People are like walking past you.
I'm like the ball walkers passed me. Um,
Yes,
but
yes. That will
you
get
can,
better over time, but yes, for
and that's
sure.
really cool when you watch
Yeah.
your active heart rate or your zone two heart rate adjusting. You're like, wow, I can actually get more out of myself at a lower heart rate. Like that's amazing. We have a stronger heart, and it also helps with mitochondrial health.
Yes, as
But
well as getting stronger, right?
Mhm.
If you have better cardiovascular health, you're going to be able to push more weight usually in a workout. Like you're going to be more trained physically. And so I think they go hand in hand. It's just the right dosage based on your goals and your biofeedback.
Because cardio is not for fat loss. There is a space of, hey, if you move more, you're going to burn more fat, but it is not the key to fat loss. And that's going to be
Right.
strength training driven with nutrition. Um, and it um,
I
the
think if
different,
anything,
oh,
cardio, I mean, zone two, kind of being one thing, but I think if anything, cardio, especially anything above zone two, for me personally, and what I've noticed like anecdotally for a lot of clients is that it can actually make fat loss a little more challenging because
mhm.
it does a great job of telling our body to fuel. So we're hungrier. So it can be a little bit harder for me to adhere to a calorie deficit when I'm doing a lot of cardio. I have to be really careful with the dosage.
And that's like the thing, if you're really, I mean, that's where like, hey, I've got those last 5 pounds I really want to get off for my wedding or for this thing. And you're like, okay, we might have to really increase our output. So it's not a we live here in this space kind of thing. And zone two, I like to think of it as more of longevity cardio. It could be a brisk walk. It could be your incline walking. Like, hey, maybe you're hiking. I mean, those of you who live in, we just left Utah. Those of you who live in the mountain have much better cardio than the rest of us. Um, but so thinking of it as how to improve your longevity. And then when we do hit, which hit again is not a negative thing, it does help with your the max effort of your heart, of your like your I mean it's not really the same as VO2 training, but it can be similar. It also does help with shortened rest times with training. And I like to think of hit as espresso. It's done, it's fabulous in small doses, but too much of it and we're going to get jittery and exhausted and feel awful.
Oh, I love that. It's a good analogy.
Because it can disrupt recovery. It can spike your cortisol, and spiking our cortisol is not inherently a negative thing. But again, if we're doing too much of it, as with anything, it becomes a negative thing. And so cardio as a whole is a tool for energy, for health, for recovery. It is not a punishment. It is not because we ate the whole crumble cookie last night. Like you're better off using that crumble cookie and going to lift and putting those calories towards new muscle. But cardio does do a lot of stuff, and I think it got demonized. And I think also, I mean, when you're in fat loss, yes, you have less calories coming in and you do have to be more cautious, but we don't always live in fat loss. We live at maintenance. And when we're at maintenance, we have the ability to perform at a high capacity. Like women aren't delicate little flowers. We can perform, we just have to take care of ourselves. And that brings me to my next slide of recovery. My Zen goose. Um, so recovery is where results actually happen. We want to, the biggest one of this is sleep. We want to sleep 7 to 9 hours. And some nights we might get less sleep, but just, as a whole, let's prioritize some sleep. And sometimes we have to, the question is, if I have to get up early and train and I went to bed later than I normally do last night, hey, we're going to pull back on our training a bit. And it's all person dependent. If it's the first time that you didn't get sleep in the last month, like you're probably going to be okay. But adjust for yourself. And it's not all or nothing. We got some sleep, we'll be okay. Maybe the next night we get a little bit more sleep, but sleep is where we recover. Our body is not going to repair and recover while you're awake. It's busy keeping you awake. So we need to make sure that we're getting sleep, and we need to make sure that we're getting quality sleep. And this is really, like, really, really important. It's something that I like, one of those like non-negotiable anchor habits that like this is what I do. I sleep well and I protect my sleep. We need to hydrate. We need to hydrate considerably. We are 70% water. So we have to replenish that, and we can do it with pure water. We need, some of us need some electrolytes, depending on how much you sweat, how much you move, where you live. And something that I found really interesting, it's if we have a downturn of 1 to 3% in hydration. So if we are 1 to 3% dehydrated, we can have up to 20% downturn in our physical and cognitive performance. And when we wake up in the morning, we are 3 to 5% dehydrated. So when you get up in the morning, it is a very great idea to get yourself water before anything else. And I personally like to do the electrolyte water. That's when I do my electrolytes. It's kind of first thing in the morning to kind of get the whole system going. But regardless, get yourself some water first thing in the morning while your coffee's brewing. And then we have protein, which we've talked about how important protein is. I know you all are probably like, I'm eating more protein than I ever thought was possible. How much chicken do I really have to eat? But not only, protein does a number of things in our body, but it's going to repair the muscles. It's going to strengthen your body. And it helps with your metabolism. So we love all that. If we overtrain without recovery, it's like hitting send on an email without Wi-Fi. The message is just not going to go through. You're going to continue to train and continue to train and continue to train and wonder why you're just chasing your butt in the gym. You're like, I'm doing all the things. Why is nothing happening? And there's quite a few things, but recovery is the most overlooked piece. And that's when, and I'm sure a lot of us in this group, most of us, probably 99.9, I'm going to say 100% of us, high achieving, high succeeding, high performing women. Like we perform very well in every other aspect of life. And you're putting in all this effort in the gym. And a lot of times, like what your brain is managing as stress, you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Your body they're at a disconnect. Your body can only take so much, regardless of how much your brain's going to gaslight you into thinking we're great. So recovery comes really hard for women in this space. Like we're lazy if we take a day off. We're lazy if we're listening to our body. We're lazy if we sit down, but none of that's true. Like if you can't tell how passionate I am, recovery is so important for us. Sleep is free hormone therapy. It regulates cortisol, it regulates hunger. If you're not sleeping well, your leptin and your ghrelin, which are your hunger hormones, your ghrelin tells you you're hungry, your leptin tells you you're full, they're going to be dysregulated. And that's why, like, I don't know about you, I'm always hungry when I don't sleep. And it's usually just carbs. My body's looking for a quick acting energy source.
Yeah,
Sleep's
absolutely.
up there. Yeah, I can't drive in enough how important sleep is. And I get it. Like I want to stay up later to get things done. I want to get up earlier to get things done, but realistically, you give yourself 1 more hour of sleep, you're going to get a whole heck of a lot more out of those 16 hours you're running around taking care of everybody.
Even if it's just during this calorie deficit, like
Mhm.
knowing that, I mean, obviously all the time would be great, but knowing that you are giving your body less fuel. So if you can make up for that with a little bit more sleep, it's going to make everything easier. And just, I mean, we're not superheroes. Like we can't be low intake and low sleep and think that we're going to just crush our workout and feel great. It's not possible. And it's a lot harder as we age. So even if it's okay for the next 12 weeks while I'm in a calorie deficit, I'm going to make some adjustments so I can sleep well. And hopefully you carry that forward.
Um, because we've spent a lot of time probably under eating, a lot of stress, a lot of years of that. And so your body is just trying to come back from the hole it's been in. And maybe not everybody. Let me not just like put that out there and say everybody, but I I'll speak for myself. I spent a lot of time driving myself into a hole, and now that really prioritize recovery, just overall mentally, physically, night and day difference in how I feel. And I think a lot of times we spend so much time not feeling good that that becomes the norm. So I hope with anything, like with all the habits, whatever you guys pick up out of this is like, I want to feel good, and whatever brings me to feeling good, amazing. Um, Joint health. We need to focus on joint health too. Mobility is your joint insurance. So a few minutes a day protects decades. And I like mobility or dynamic stretching for warm-ups. And then static, which is that like stuff we did in PE, the hold. Dynamic is moving while you're doing the movement. The static is stretch and hold. That's great for after. And I like to do both on my days off. And whether that's we're watching TV as a family, I get out the foam roller, I just do a little bit of movements. The more mobile you are, the stronger you're going to be because the better you're going to be able to hold that form as well. So pairing those, 3 to 5 minutes. You don't have to do this whole 15-minute warm-up kind of thing. I like to hop on the treadmill, walk for 5 minutes or so, get my blood flowing, go move a little bit, get in a few working sets, which like my first few sets of training are usually much lower than my normal working weight, whatever I ended on, and I go through that a little bit to get the body like and the nervous system ready to do what we need out of it. And I'm a big believer, if we don't have time to do mobility, let's put it in between sets. Like we can do that as, during our rest, we can superset it into things. And that's because a lot of people don't have the time to add in 15 minutes. So you can do a little bit before, do a little bit as you're training, you do a squat, you're like, ooh, hips feel tight. Let me do some 90-90s and open those up. It doesn't have to be this whole thing. And we always want to we want to listen to our body. And when I say that, we want to build a body that is worth listening to. We know that we've been at maintenance for a while. Like we have a grasp on our hunger cues. We're recovering properly. We're training smart. That's when you're in a space where, hey, I can really listen to my body. But based on where you're at in your cycle, based on how much stress is going on at work, maybe your family's moving. Like these aren't the weeks that we're going to be going for PRs. This is where we want to pull back on our training intensity. Hey, maybe we do focus on recovery a little bit. Maybe we need to take the training off, and that's not the end of the world. Like um, I don't know, every 8 weeks or so, I have clients take deload weeks just where we're like, we're going to train at 50%, or sometimes I'm like, let's just not go to the gym this week. And we just work on some mobility for 30 minutes instead of actually training. But it's okay to adjust to where you're at. So we have to remember, like, why are we doing the things? Are we doing the things to check the box? Or are we doing the things again to feel really good and promote longevity? And I know there's a lot of like, I love to run 8 miles a day. It feels great for my mental health, but it's driving me into the ground. And it's like, okay, maybe we just take a little bit of a pause on that until we're back at a better place physically. And a lot of us like to perform at a high athletic place, and some of us just want to feel really good and have a handle on our food. So whatever space you're in, that's totally okay. And if you want to have great performance, I always like to bring it back to, I mean, regardless of what your boat is, wherever you're sitting, like you still have to have good performance to build the muscle and just feel really good in your body. But like professional athletes, they're not always on. They're not always, an NFL player is not always doing preseason training. They're taking time off, and you have to too. Rest is 100% part of the plan. It is not the setback. It's your secret weapon. And the more rest and recovery you get, the more you can expect out of yourself. All right, we have our key takeaways that I hope you got from this. And then any questions, but strength training is non-negotiable, regardless of, I said in this stage of life, but like it's non-negotiable in all the stages of life. When it comes to your programming, we have to balance our volume, our frequency, and our intensity. If one of them is off, we're not gonna feel great. We're not gonna make the progress, and chances are we're doing enough. We probably don't need to do more. Um, when it comes to cardio, we want it to support, not sabotage. It does not need to be, it is not the main focus. It is your amuse bouche. It's your appetizer. Recovery is probably more so your main, that's like your meat on the plate. Um, it's your surf and turf. We'll call it that. That'll be the meat. Strength training can be the turf or the surf. Um, but recovery and joint care are secret weapons. They will help further you than almost anything. The goal is to train smart, not just hard. We want to train hard. It feels good. It feels really cool when we're overcoming or we're getting new PRs or we're overcoming that limiting belief and your brain's like, you can't lift that. And you're like, watch me, and you get through that. Like nothing in my mind feels better than being able to overcome those kind of limiting beliefs and just watch what you can do with your body. But we want to do it from a place where we're going to maintain and we're going to promote longevity, rather than like it's not punishment. It's a celebration of what our body can do. And I think sometimes exercise gets looked at in the wrong way. Like just because if you ate too much yesterday, you're not going to go walk it or burn it off in the gym. You're just going to move on with your day. And it's okay to take time off of training. It's okay to scale back. It's okay to adjust your training. Like maybe you're used to training 4 times a week and now kids have sports in every direction and you're like, I can only train twice a week. That's okay. That's not a setback. That is great maturity when it comes to this kind of stuff because you know when to pull back on yourself. And that is the only way you'll find longevity. So, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Can I stop sharing my screen? I'll stop sharing. There we go. Maddie said, would you recommend adding weight to a lift if I move through the exercise quickly and it looks easy, but I still struggle to fully squeeze or contract the muscle at the top of the movement? Are you talking about like with squats, deadlifts, that kind of thing?
I'm envisioning like a hip thrust if she's squeezing at the top.
Okay. Yeah, that I was because I was gonna say if it's a squat, we
Like,
don't have to worry about that. But yeah, the hip thrust, that would make sense. Um,
oh,
I
and
would
rows. She
honestly,
said like barbell rows, dumbbell rows, like bent over
okay.
rows and thrusts.
I would like
So
I would say let's switch to a unilateral movement and see if there's a weakness between the two. Because it could be more momentum, but that's what were you gonna say, Michaela?
yeah, so I think switching, like if you have, let's say, a bent over barbell row or even bent over dumbbell rows, like switching to a single arm row, see how that feels, see if you can focus more on that contraction at the top of the movement. But if you feel like you're moving through the exercise quickly and it looks easy, but you're having a hard time contracting at the top, then I'm wondering if you can slow the movement down a little bit also so that you can like practice that engagement a little bit better. And also this is where we recommend sending us a video because we can give you really good feedback. Like you might think, oh my gosh, I'm not engaging or I'm not contracting. And maybe it's even just a little bit of us giving you some different verbal cues to focus on and like where you should be focusing on that contraction. And also, it might feel like you're not contracting, but maybe like a hip thrust would be a good example of this, right? Like people come up to the top and then they over exaggerate that extension, they over exaggerate that hip extension. So you might actually be doing a great job and just increase the weight and you're good. You might be overthinking your form too. So I think kind of all of those things, like taking video, sending it to us. We would love to review. And then also just like trusting that you might be doing a great job. And if you feel like you're able to execute the reps very easily, then I would add weight. And sometimes adding weight, even like I have a hard time engaging. Like if I'm thinking a bent over barbell row, if it's really light, it's almost harder for me to like get that last pull
Mhm.
than if it's heavier. So you might just be ready to increase and like feel that stimulus, and it might help you recruit your back even better as you're pulling.
You might want to also try like as a warm up, doing some hip thrusts, just body weight and really or like holding that glute bridge with
Hmm.
that hip thrust at the top and just putting in those isometrics. I
Yep.
love so
Yep.
much
So that you
holding a
can
row
feel
just
that.
for a sec. Yeah. And you can like doing a banded row and just like letting all those muscles engage and fire. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Because it
I
could be
love
like
those holds at the top.
your bigger muscles are over recruited. Like, the traps love to take over and then the bottom of the lat's not participating. Um, yeah, so the isometrics I've been a big fan of those. Um,
Hmm.
Jules says, I appreciate all this information. It helps with mindset, knowing it's okay not to push myself 7 days a week. Heck yes. Heck yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think as women we've been given permission to like have time off. We're
Uh-huh.
supposed to go all the time
Like
and feel really good about it all the time.
I always have clients that say, wait, what do I do on that other day that's not programmed? I'm like, read a book, go for a walk, whatever you want to do. How cool is that? We
That
are
is a good
allowed.
feeling.
We are allowed to rest. That's where we can recover so we can push hard again.
This stuff isn't like, unless you're a professional athlete, like training is not the center of your life. It should make everything in life easier. It could be a background point of life, but it is not the center of life.
And even as a professional, like even, I
You.
was paid to train, and then even as a collegiate athlete, we had off seasons and then we had rest days. Like, so that was always programmed into our week. And I think it's easier to do that if you have a coach telling you to do that. So be that coach for yourself, or maybe you can't be that, and maybe hiring and investing in a coach to be in your corner and kind of remind you of the benefits and keep you accountable to your goals, and also help you give yourself that grace and like allow you to rest. Sometimes you need to hear it from someone else, and that's okay too for a season.
That's a big thing that we work on like month one, me and a lot of clients is we're going to do less. We're going to be okay with doing less. And there's quite a bit of freedom in someone giving you permission to do less. Hmm, nothing else in the chat. Any other questions? All right.
I'm sure maybe after the fact too, if as people listen to this later, feel free to ask questions in the groups, and we're happy to troubleshoot anything more on an individual basis as needed too.
Yeah. Was there anything I didn't cover that you thought of?
No, I think just whatever troubleshooting help anyone needs on sleep this week, and take in the resources that we emailed out, and we're really excited to continue on.
And if anyone wants to drop form videos in like the group chat, yeah, I'll gladly go over them. And it can feel a little intimidating, but it'd be very helpful for yourself. And then other people will see it happen and then they'll be brave and drop in videos.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you for joining, ladies. Thanks so much, Marita.
Thank you, ladies.
We will talk next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.